Hey guys, welcome back to an all-new episode of a pro wrestling podcast with Matt and friends. I'm your host, Matt Kozakowski, and alongside me today is the Iron Bear himself, Tom Coffey. Tom, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, pretty good. So we've been trying to get out of this for a while. So it's good that we can finally get in and get it done. So
Yeah, man. So it's funny because about a year ago, I reached out to you on Twitter, and then I was talking to Brandon Espinoza, who's part of your dysfunction group, who I'm good friends with, and he's like, "Well, Tom doesn't really go on Twitter, so I'll talk to him. We'll try to get you to get him on." And I was like, "Awesome," because I've been waiting to do this one for quite some time. Really excited about it. But yeah, man, I'm pumped. So let's get started. When did you get into pro wrestling? Like, what was that first moment that you were like, "Holy crap, pro wrestling's great, the greatest"? Like, what was that first moment for
oh,
you?
dear God, I was like 2 or 3 years old, something like that. And my granddad practically raised me for like the first, I don't know, 12, 13 years of my life anyway. And so whenever I was little, like, if I couldn't sleep or whatever on, weekends or whatever, whenever he was watching me, he would just let me stay up and watch whatever was on TV with him, hoping that it would, put me to sleep. And one night, I think it was WCW because I remember Sting. So, and, it would have been around 93, 94 anyway. So, like, it would have had to have been WCW at the time. But the first thing I remember seeing was just Sting coming out, but like this is still whenever he had the whole, like the flat top, the blonde hair, the
Yeah.
face paint and shit. And so I thought he was a superhero because I didn't know what wrestling was at the time. I was like really little. I was all up in the Power Rangers and stuff. So I
Oh,
was
for
like, oh
sure.
my God, like, yeah, this dude's a freaking superhero. Like, this is what's up. And then I want to say he wrestled Luger, but I could be wrong on that. I mean, I was little and I've had a lot of head trauma since then. So who the hell really knows? But that was the first thing that I remember, and I was just like, dude, like this is pretty dope. And then a couple years later, just kind of casually watching that in Smoky Mountain at the time and stuff. He we eventually stumbled across like WWF. It was around the time that like Stone Cold and Bret Hart worked the
Okay.
WrestleMania show, and it was I guess they were showing like the aftermath or whatever, and I just remember Stone Cold being busted open and stuff, and I was like, oh, like who the hell is that guy? That guy's like tough as shit, like let's watch that, like. And then so I kind of jumped from WCW to WWF at the time, but I mean this is the only thing I've ever wanted to do in my life, the only thing I've ever felt like I've actually like fit in at, and the only place I feel like I belong. So
Oh, absolutely. And I know you said that your grandfather raised you. You know, you started watching wrestling with him and stuff. Has he seen you perform live?
no, he actually passed away a couple years ago, and
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
I mean, it happens. It's life, you know what I mean? But about maybe 10, 15 years ago, something like that, he started getting real bad, like Parkinson's and dementia and that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
So he was never able to be in a position to be able to go see me or anything. But I mean, him and my other granddad, on my dad's side, of course, he was more my dad's dad, of course, was more of an MMA fan. He was
Okay.
like basically like what you would call like a legit tough badass. Like there's one person on the face of this earth that I would never fight. It would be my granddad on my dad's side. Like dude, like me and him would wrestle and stuff like that when I was like, 13, 14, and he's like freaking, I don't know, like 85, and he's still like kicking my ass and shit. I'm like, Jesus Christ, old man. But yeah,
That's
I don't
awesome,
know,
man.
I'm kind of going off track and rambling on that, of course. But no, so neither one of them ever got to see anything that I've done in ring. But
Did
I
he
mean,
ever give you
then
did he ever give you shit saying like, "Oh, that the wrestling shit's fake?" Did he ever give you that
no,
shit? Okay.
no, like that's the one thing. Like they were probably the best supporters I've ever had. Like my granddad on my dad's side, the one that was the legit badass stuff or whatever. He like kept trying to toughen me up and shit. And he was like, "Look, he's like, we're gonna be doing like fights and stuff," because he thought that I was going more into like MMA and stuff like that, of course. But
Yeah.
he was just like, "Oh, like if you're gonna do this, like you gotta get tough, blah blah blah," and like we just like kick each other's asses, once every now and then. But it was all tough love and shit, and just toughen me up and stuff like that. But no, I mean, like neither one of them ever really gave me any kind of shit or anything. About the closest thing that even came to it was I don't remember who I worked or anything, but I ended up breaking my nose one night, and
Oh man.
my nose was like 100% sideways. I mean, it was like I don't know if you can see that, but it was like that at the time or whatever, and
Oh wow.
it's still kind of crooked now or whatever. It's still not like lined up or anything, but so I broke my nose, and I ended up just setting it with a rag and a pencil, where I just bit down on the rag, crammed a pencil up there, and just popped it back in. which sucked worse than breaking it did. But so of course the next day he just looked at me and he goes, yeah, like what's the other guy look like? And I was like, oh well, no, it's like this happened in the ring last night. Like shit happens or whatever. And he was just like he just kind of stopped and he looked at me. He's like, and that's fun to you. And I was like, yeah.
That's awesome.
And that was the closest that he ever got to questioning why the hell I did this. He was just like, it's like your fucking nose is sideways, and like that's fun. But
Absolutely, absolutely. And, a lot of people don't give wrestling, that credit. Like, injuries happen, man, and it's crazy.
oh,
Like,
dude, 100%. Well, I
you
mean,
know,
friggin' going back to the WWE thing, a little over a year ago, about a year and a month ago, we did that chain carnage match, and the top chain snapped, and I fell out backwards and tore my MCL and dislocated my kneecap, and which I mean, like I'm fine now. Like I just got cleared about 2 months ago, so like I'm getting back in it and all that stuff, and picking up where I left off, and kicking ass and taking names,
oh yeah.
um, but I mean, it's part of it. I mean, like I could sit here and probably drag out for like an hour and a half all the injuries I've ever had, through the sport and stuff. People want to
Oh,
call
for
it a
sure.
business, but at the end of the day, it's still a sport, regardless however you feel about it. But
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I've had friggin' teeth out, knocked loose. I've got cauliflower ears on like the insides and shit just from just getting popped in the side of the head half the time. I don't know, friggin' black eyes, broken noses, broken fingers, wrists, cracked God knows how many ribs over the course of life and time, and I snapped my foot one night. That was fun. That was probably the well, I'd say the MCL was probably the worst injury I've ever had, just because of how long it kept me out. But
Oh, for sure.
about like, this is probably within like my first year or whatever. Dude had me in a rear chin lock, and another guy goes to drop kick him and landed straight on my foot. That was basically like these were my toes. That was my heel. Comes straight down like that, and my foot just goes backwards
Oh,
and snapped it. So that was fun. I
damn,
was like,
dude.
yeah, and I was like freshly 18 too. Like I started training when I was 17. And so I was like freshly 18, get my first couple pro matches and stuff. And like I still finished out the match. We still went like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And still ended up it was a parking lot show at the time before I knew how to, pick and choose more of my battles, so to speak. But
Yeah.
so the like the finish of the match is I still went to the top rope. Now, anybody who's ever seen any of my matches, anytime I ever go to the top rope, nothing ever works how I plan for it to, and somehow I always end up on the floor to some extent. So you would think I would learn to not go to the top rope anymore, but shit happens. But so I go to
The
the top
top
rope,
rope's fun,
and
man. You can't not do it.
yeah, well, so the top rope's fun until gravity comes into play, and then gravity and me don't get along too well. But
Right, right.
so brother comes up and drop kicks me, which he's got a good vertical, so I gotta give him that. But he drop kicks me off of the top rope, and I missed the apron, and I just land flat back on the parking lot. So I probably I don't know, I guess like a good 9 foot free fall down, and 300 pounds and cement plus gravity don't equal out a
Damn.
whole lot. Well, but
No, that
uh,
does not sound like a fun time, man.
yeah, but still finished it out and still stuck around, helped take the ring down, all that stuff, paying dues and everything at the time. And then next morning, I never turned myself to the ER, and I just walked in, and the lady's like, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" I was like, "Well, I'm pretty sure my foot's broken." And then she's like, she just looks at me and stuff. She goes, "Well, you're walking off pretty good for it to be a broken foot." I was like, "Lady, you have no idea how bad this sucks right now." I was like, "I gotta fucking get somebody in here or something, like shoot me something.
Right,
This fucking sucks."
right.
But
I mean, were you walking like where your foot was like angled up?
yeah, well, so it turns out that it was like well, they said it was like a hairline fracture going across this way, like right about where like your toes meet your foot, but it was
Yeah,
about
yeah,
an
yeah.
inch back. So it wasn't
Ah,
necessarily like dangling backwards at the time because the bottom part of my foot was still intact and connected. It just kind of like snapped this way and then just cracked it right going all the way across where your toes meet at. So
oh
that's
man,
fun.
that's yeah, no.
So
That's not a good time, man.
the
It's crazy because I tell people the story about like when I trained for pro wrestling and my first day of training, I got a severe concussion and they were like, "Don't do it." And I was like, "All right, I guess not. So, hey, man, at least you stuck it out through all the injuries and stuff. I mean, a lot of people don't have, that willpower to continue after all the injuries. You see people that get one injury and they're like, I'm done. You know,
I
wrestling,
mean, I don't.
it's a hard sport.
And I mean, like, I don't know how much of it's willpower versus stupidity half the time, but yeah, I think you got to be a little bit of both and a whole lot of psychotic to be able to do it. And
Oh, for
I
sure.
mean, because I mean, everything we do, like, I mean, regardless, I mean, you're getting punched, you're getting kicked, you're getting slammed, you're getting dropped. I mean, you like, regardless of how people want to say wrestling's fake, I mean, like, you know, whatever, but like, you can't fake falling, you know, like, all you
Oh,
can do
for
is
sure.
just brace and hope for the best. And like, I mean, like, you're gonna get hit, you're gonna get punched, you're gonna get kicked. It's not ballet. Like, it's still a contact sport at the end of the day.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yeah.
you have to go in knowing that anything and everything could happen at any given point, and at any point the wrong thing could happen. You could even die. Like, yeah, I mean, we've seen that
Right.
God knows how many times with people, but
I mean,
I mean, it's just
look what happened years ago with the whole Rey Mysterio thing. You know, accidents
exactly.
happen. You know,
Yeah.
people didn't sit there and be like, "Oh, Rey Mysterio killed the dude." Like, it's
Yep.
pro wrestling. You know, accidents happen, and you know, it's funny. Not funny. It sucks because I got a lot of people that are like, "Why do you watch it?" And I'm like, "Because I love it." They're like, "It's fake," and I'm like, "Dude, people have died in the ring. Like, you
Yeah.
can't tell
Well,
me it's fake." You know what I'm
well,
saying?
and like my argument to that too is, you know, everybody's like, "Oh, well, why do you watch it? It's fake." Like, okay, like you watch TV shows, right? Like you watch reality shows, like
Right.
90% of that shit's fake. You watch Jerry Springer, 100% of that shit's fake.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
you go to like you're gonna tell me that like, oh, well, wrestling's fake. I don't watch that. Hey, I'm gonna go watch Iron Man. I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. Like, and
It's
then these same people,
storytelling nonetheless.
yeah, but like the same people that want to bitch about wrestling being fake are having like legit heated, intense internet keyboard warrior battles over
Yep.
whether or not Batman could butt fuck Superman with a kryptonite condom or some shit. You know what I mean? And it's like, guys, come on, dude. Like, you're gonna sit here and argue over two guys who don't even exist in real life, but then you're gonna
Yeah.
bash anybody who either wants to be in the wrestling industry or
Yep.
wants to watch it or anything. It's like, guys, come on, man. Like, just because your life sucks so bad doesn't mean that you have to take it out on somebody else.
Oh yeah, and these internet trolls too. When it comes to pro wrestling, is insane. Like
Yeah.
you're you know, like Brandon said, you're obviously not always on Twitter, but you know, I see these posts all the time, and people are like Matt Seidel when he joined AEW. You know, the first day he joined, he did a shooting star press and it botched. And people shit talked Matt Seidel after that. And I'm like, dude, seriously,
No.
you try to do a shooting star press and you tell me,
Well, see, and that's another thing too. Like, I hate the word botch because the whole aspect of professional wrestling is a contact sport. We are
yeah,
gladiators. We are fighters. You know what I mean? Like, we go in and we beat the shit out of each other.
it's a
So
slip
why
up.
would? Yeah, I mean, like look at UFC for example, or any kind of boxing. Like, how many times has somebody thrown a haymaker and then like wildly missed, and then they landed on their face? You don't see their fans being like, "Oh, well, like, he botched that, you know,
Yeah.
punch or whatever." You know, and it's like, come on, dude.
All
Like
you
shit
see is
happens.
people say like he fucked up. Like, you know, that's it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, I
know,
mean,
it
I mean, I can handle like somebody being like, "Oh, well, like he fucked up better." I mean, because like if you watch like football and like if a play gets fucked up, you know, they don't go like, "Well, like, you know, they botched that play." Like they'd be like, "Oh, fuck it, they fucked that one up." Like, you know, that's
yeah.
more acceptable than like a botch thing. You know, it's like botching insinuates that something was planned. Now, I mean, granted, that gets in a whole different rabbit hole of, you know, different aspects as far as wrestling goes. But I mean, you do have some people that they there's a difference between being a wrestler and being a worker. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whenever I say that, like the two differences in that. And it's like you have some people who can't just go out there and work. You know, it's like they just go and they have everything A to Z, you know, like a GPS system. But then it's like, well, what are you gonna do when the road's closed? You know what I mean? Like, are you
Yep.
just gonna drive off a cliff and hope for the best, or you got to figure it out? And then you guys like me, like I was trained by, you know, Tom Pritchard, Tracy Smothers, Chuck Terry, you know, did stuff with like Jerry Lynn, that kind of stuff. And it's like all of those guys would never like not that they were like shit talking the people who do that or whatever,
Oh yeah.
but it was just like kind of like a lost art for them, you know what I mean? And it was just like I do a lot better just going on the fly and then just treating it like an actual fight because that's what it is at the end of the day. Like that's what it is. Like we're all fighting for the same spot. We're all fighting for the main event. We're all fighting for money to some extent or another. And
For sure.
it's, you
Right.
know, this is literally like every time I'm in the ring, that's my life. That's my livelihood. Like that is the embodiment of everything I've spent my entire time on this planet working towards. So why wouldn't I treat it like a fight?
Oh, for sure.
You know?
And
And
watching what you do, I mean, you know, like I said, I first seen you in OVW. That was the first time I witnessed you, and I was like, this dude has something different. You know, there was something different I felt And, I watched OVW like a decade ago, and that's where I found Brandon Espinoza and Paradise.
Yeah.
He was there, and you had Adam Revolver and I forget who, Ted McNailer, his tag team partner back then. And it was different. And then I stopped watching it for some time because I just started not getting invested. And then I started watching it again. I was like, it's cool. And then you showed up, and I was like, this dude's fucking cool. Like, something about Tom Coffey felt special, man. And
I just because I beat the shit out of everybody.
oh yeah, dude. And I just watched it, man. And then Brandon came back, and I was hooked, man. And it's crazy because what you do, it's absolutely awesome. I mean, just a brawler, man. You get that brawler feel from you 100%. And I was like, like I said, you seen the Coffey name before we started. I seen the Coffey name, and I was like, all right. I was a big fan of Mark Coffey, Joe Coffey. I was like, we got another Coffey in the wrestling business. Can't go wrong with it. Those two are absolutely beasts. So I was like, third Coffey, cool, awesome. I want to hear the story while we're chatting, what you said about Al Snow before we started.
Yeah, so to kind of playing off of your whole Marky Joe thing or whatever. So this is back, like, COVID had just ended. Well, it's sort of ish. COVID was like just to the point where they were kind of letting some people in here and there and that kind of thing. And OVW at the time was running out of the arena in Jeffersonville, Indiana, like right across the river from Louisville, right? And so it was the same building that, like, I think IWA Mid South ran there for God knows how long and stuff. And it's a very tiny place, but like it's good for like a small wrestling atmosphere. Almost has like an ECW feel to it, right? But
right.
So I show up, and like, I've got my like Sunday best on, if that's what you want to call it. I mean, I pretty much showed up like this. So I mean, whatever you want to call that, Sunday best or homeless or whatever the hell. But so I walk in. Yeah, and like I walk in, like the only time I'd ever even remotely talked to Al Snow was when I was 8 years old, and my dad was he was in EMT for 30 something plus years. And whenever WWF at the time would come into town or whatever, like he would volunteer to work the shows and sneak me in through the ambulance in the back. And then, I was in EMS at that point, so I was a student, even though I was like 10. But I think I might have been like 8 whenever I first met him. But he ended up coming over to us or whatever, and then was talking and blah blah blah. And of course, me being 8, like wasn't smartened up or anything at the time. So I started talking to him about head, like the disembodied freaking doll head thing or whatever. So now fast forward to here we are some odd 20 years later. And so this is the first time that like grown me has gotten to talk to him or whatever. And I was like, shit, man, like I don't want to like start off by being like, hey man, I met you when I was 8 years old, because that's what every fucking body in this damn fucking business does. Like everybody fucking used to watch wrestling. Like their grandmas and grandpas used to always go down to the flea markets on weekends and watch wrestling. And everybody was in love with Hogan and blah, 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 blah. It's the same song and dance you hear from everybody, which, whatever. But so I go in and I wasn't even booked technically. I just like had my stuff and I just showed up and I was like, hey, whatever. And Maria James was actually who got me the hookup. She's basically been like my big sister in the business for hell since I broke in 2010.
Yeah.
And her and Jesse Bell Smothers both have been like my wrestling family and stuff. Like they've always like, helped me out and guided me and taken care of me and that kind of stuff. And so like she went up to Al and was like, hey, like you need to use this kid. Like, he's good, he's old school, you like him, blah, blah, blah. And so sure enough, like finally they, he was like, all right, well, kid, we'll put you in this 4-way. It's for the Rush division. And I'm like, okay. And then now, whenever I first talked to Al 20 something years ago, he didn't sound like Batman at the time. And now he halfway sounds like freaking Batman whenever you talk to him now. And his voice is all raspy and stuff at the time. He kind of talks like this now, like a real ass man, But so he comes up and he's like, kid, we're putting you in this Rush division match. Blah, blah, blah. These guys are going to do other flips and shit. You just be a big ass brute and shut them down. I'm like, cool, because, like, that's what I planned anyway. And so I got all my shit on. Like, we only had, like, 5 minutes before, like, we were going out, like, from the time that I knew I was working to the time that we were going. And, that's, I don't know, that's whenever I work best. Like, when there's, like, no game plan or anything, you just go out and just fight, like, a bunch of grown-ass men, So I go out, and one of the guys in it was Gustavo Aguilar at the time. I think he's dropped the Aguilar part now, but he does this like Latin heartthrob Honduran gimmick thing, and comes out and shakes his man titties and all that stuff. But so me and him actually became like best friends after this shit. Just because like at one point like I was on the outside and like I had like nobody said anything about heads ups or anything or like hey we're diving or nothing. I just remember like I'm out there like I'm selling like I turn around and then you saw those just falling out of the sky and I was like oh shit. And then I just caught him. I'm like shit and like and it wasn't enough to where it even like staggered me. So I was like well I'm not gonna go down from it obviously. Fuck that. You know like dude's like 100 pounds. I'm 300 so I just catch him and I'm like huh. I just fucking threw him out in the crowd. I'm like, all right, well, fuck him then.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, no. So whenever I go and then I look at like the run sheet or whatever, somebody had penciled in Joe Coffey into the four way, and so I'm sitting there, almost like, oh shit, like hey, like I wonder if they know that my name's Tom, like I'm not Joe, you know, whatever. And so like I go and talk to Maria, she goes, oh shit, yeah, no, like we got to fix that or whatever. So then I want to say it was Adam Revolver, I think is who came up to us, and he was like, yeah, we know, like we're just fucking with Al, blah blah blah. So then at this point or whatever, Al thought that I was one of the NXT kids at the time. And turns out, you know, later that everybody was in on the fucking rib. And then that was, you know, it was actually on me at the time because they just
Yeah.
wanted to see me get all bent out of shape. And it didn't really work because I don't give a shit. You know, a piece of paper with a name is a piece of paper with a name. But
Right.
what I do out in the ring, you know, that part's like my selling point. You know, that's when you get to sell your brand at that point. But
Just say
yeah,
fucking
no,
and
like,
throw people in the crowd, you know?
yeah. I mean, it always works.
Gustavo is really talented,
Friggin',
man. I give him a
dude,
lot
I
of
love
credit because he's
Gustavo,
really
man.
good. But
I love
no,
Gustavo.
absolutely talented, man. There's so much talent in OVW.
Oh yeah.
And then there's so many guys who I did like Dustin Jackson that just I haven't seen in a minute. Like he just kind of disappeared. But yeah, no, I love OVW now. I love what Al's doing. I love what you guys are doing. It's fantastic to watch. It's refreshing now all of a sudden. You know, again, like it's
Yeah.
got my attention on a weekly basis when I watch it. You know, that reality of wrestling, like there's shows out there now that I'm like, you know, not even WWE, like, you know, just other shows now that I'm just like so hooked. And, you know, I
Yeah.
love what you guys are doing with Dysfunction. I want to talk about that in a little bit here. Now, curiosity.
Mhm.
Where did you come up with the name Iron Beer Tom Coffee?
So it's kind of a conglomeration of just a lot of stuff over the course of time in life and whatnot. So my original trainer, Chuck Terry, is the one who gave me the Iron Bear name, but he wanted me to run as Tommy Iron Bear at the time. Because of like my bloodline, my heritage and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I live in East Tennessee, so naturally everybody is one something of Cherokee Native American.
Yep.
But then I'm also like Irish and German or whatever. So basically, I was just bred to like drink and fight. So I was like, shit, you know, whatever, like you know, whatever gets me in. And at the time, I didn't know that I had the ability to say no to people in the business. You know, I
Yep.
thought it was, you know, I mean, like that was my first adventure ever in it. And, you know, I was a 17-year-old kid who just raised $1,000 to go get trained, and you know, I thought it was just, you know, they give you a character, they give you a name, and then you know, that's what you do for the rest of your career or whatever. And you know, I didn't realize at the time that I had, you know, creative freedom and whatnot, and the ability to say no and then do my own shit and whatever. So I ran as Tommy Iron Bear for a good while. And then just like at the time they were wanting me to do more like Native American type of stuff, you know, like
Yeah.
where they wanted me to wear like ceremonial feathers out, and, you know, people call it a headdress, whatever, but they wanted me to wear like the ceremonial feathers out and stuff like that, which is actually fairly disrespectful to like the actual heritage and bloodline stuff like that or whatever. So
Right.
um after probably about a year or so, I got with a couple other guys. One of which I'm actually sitting in his house right now doing the podcast and everything. He's the guy that's going to help me film this promo here later. But so I got
Awesome.
with him and one of the other guys, and then one of the other guys has been doing this for I think like 10 something years at the time. And he was telling me, he's like, well, he's like, is that what you want to do? I was like, well, no. I was like, I was like, I know that he didn't mean anything by it, like my trainer or whatever. I know that he didn't have any negative intentions or whatever with it. You know, he was just, you know, hey kid, you know, this may be something that'll work. Like run with it, you know.
Yeah.
And but I told him I just feel like it's disrespectful to a lot of people. And I was like, and it's just not something that, you know, like I should be doing or whatever. I was like, now like if I was like from the reservation or something like that, like it'd be a whole different story or whatever, you know.
Oh,
But
for
like it
sure.
was just
Right.
I wasn't, and it was just especially nowadays too, like with you know how everybody's all like you know, like trying to kind of weed out the whole cultural appropriation stuff like that or whatever, you know, it's like that
Oh, for
definitely
sure.
wouldn't even remotely fly nowadays anyhow. But that's kind
Nothing
of my
flies
opinion on that.
anymore, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, but That's why I kind of started getting more away from that. But I did like the Iron Bear name because I'm freaking built like a daggum grizzly bear for the most fucking part. I mean, now I'm 6 foot and well, now I'm 312 pounds. I was 340 back in March, but I've been on one of those fancy diets trying to slim down. But I mean, like I'm 6 foot and like 310, 312 pounds, and I was like, shit. I was like, yeah, like, I'm still built like a bear. Like I'm not a pretty guy. Like I don't have abs. I'm probably never gonna have abs if we're being honest. But like I'm just a big nasty brute. So I was like, hell, why not?
Oh, fuck
And
it,
then
yeah.
with the iron thing, I started thinking about like all the injuries and shit I've had in life and all that. I was like, well, I'm as tough as iron. I'm built like a bear, like hell. Like, I'll keep it. But then I got to the point where I was like, well, where am I going to place it? I was like, I don't want to be Tommy Iron Bear. Like that sounds too like cartoonish. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
was like, if I want to be taken serious, I got to get away from being cartoon and get into just being a freaking ass kicker. You know what I mean?
Oh, for
And
sure.
so then I started just being, the Iron Bear Tommy Coffey for a while, and it wasn't up until Major League Wrestling. I was kind of following them around for a little bit, and one of their guys, they put me in a match with Loki, which is pretty cool. And I mean, it wasn't anything glorious or whatever, but I mean, I
Yeah.
did my job and I made him look good. That's like the object of the game or whatever. But um, so they asked me about my name and I tell them, and then they were like, Tommy Coffey, like, who fucking named you that? It sounds like a fucking jobber name. I was like, yeah, well, my fucking parents named me that. So there's that. Thanks, dicks. And they were like, well, we're just gonna call you Tom Coffey. It sounds more adult, more prominent. I was like, all right, cool, whatever. So then I'm like, you know what? And I'm like, I'm working Loki, like, and then like Loki ends up knocking me out and literally one hit, like straight up, like bell rings, ding ding, flies across elbow, I'm out, ding ding, that's it. Like ref stops the match, everything. I don't know if he still has it up or not, but you can actually watch me get knocked out by him. If you can find that clip where he hits and my head just bounces across all three ropes on my way down. And
Jesus.
I got to the back and they were like, man, you just down like a Billy Bucks. I'm like, fuck, and I'm just, like, I'm glad it looked good because that shit fucking sucked. So, and then it ended up like that little clip that Loki had posted on his Instagram at the time got over like 15,000 something views. And it just kept growing. And I was like, well, shit. I was like, this is the most publicity I've ever had. I was like, I guess I'm Tom now. Like, fuck it. I guess I'm going to grow the fuck up. So I was like, I don't know. I was probably 20, maybe 23 ish, 24 at the time that I was doing that. I was like, fuck it, like, I guess I'm gonna grow up and be Tom now. Like,
Yeah.
so I just dropped
You got to
in
be an
line
adult
and
now instead of an animated
yeah,
character.
yeah. And I'm like, shit. I was like, I just did a hell of a lot of growing up in the last like fucking 2 hours.
Right. Well, I'm not animated anymore. I'm a real human being.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck, he done knocked the stupid out of me, so I guess I gotta come up a real man now.
Man. And I love Loki, man. He's such a different performer, man. He's so
Yeah, well,
crazy.
and
Like,
he like for such. I mean, like and I say this not like he's a small guy, but for a dude of his stature, you know what I
oh
mean.
yeah.
Like he has the voice of God himself. Like,
Oh yeah.
if you, like whenever he talks, it's just like, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this dude's got balls bigger than fucking basketballs and shit for him to fucking sound like that.
Anytime anybody says, they want Morgan Freeman to narrate their life, I want Low Key to narrate mine. I
That'd
think
be
that'd be
fucking. Loki's a good dude, man. Like I really like. So out of everybody that was there, like I figured with everything that he had done and everywhere that he had been, like I was like, man, I was like, he's probably not gonna like talk to anybody or whatever. And like I didn't want to step on toes or anything, of course. But
yeah.
I mean, dude, he was one of the nicest, most professional dudes that I talked to there.
Oh,
And
for
I mean,
sure.
like everybody was like pretty cool and stuff like that. But I mean, so it's just I just didn't expect him to be like as I guess like not like respectful, but you know what I mean. Like he was just I guess humble would be the word for it. Like,
Oh, for
but
sure.
he was just very down to earth. Would let you pick his brain when like there was a couple times where like I would like show matches and stuff. I'd be like, hey, like what do you think about this? And then he'd be like, oh, like his deep ass voice. He'd be like, oh, like, it was good, but like try this next time, or like, I like that, but not there. Maybe put that over here, whatever, just different kinds of stuff or whatever. And I mean, like he did a lot to help, man. And
Oh, for sure.
I mean, and like I wasn't like around them for too long. Like I followed them around maybe 6 7 months, something like that. Um, and then that's about the time that like about around maybe like a year or two before COVID really started hitting or whatever. So then I've just not tried to like go back there or anything since then. But it was just, I mean, for like what little time that I got to be with him and all that stuff, like I learned a lot from him.
Oh
And then
yeah.
that's one thing that I think a lot of kids, in wrestling don't understand now is like you have a lot of people who they go online, they buy a pair of tights, they buy a pair of boots, and they watch a couple YouTube videos and oh no, I'm a professional wrestler, blah blah blah. But like they don't get it. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Like they just look at it as a good time. They look at it as a hobby, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, like you're like for anything to exist and for anybody to grow, you have to have a start somewhere. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
but and then it's like kids like that though. That's the difference between like guys who were like playing wrestler and then guys who were actual like wrestlers and workers. You know what I mean?
No, for sure.
And like those kinds of kids would be like some of them may get opportunities because they may have a decent look or something to that effect, or they may just know the right people over the course of time in life of mom or dad or whoever's running the promotion pays to bring so and so in, and oh well, now little Timmy gets to work, this guy or whatever from TV from a year or two ago or whatever, and little
Yeah.
Timmy's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do it, but then he doesn't take the time after the fact to, or even before it, to ask questions and learn and just listen to. I mean, you can like honestly like 90% of the stuff that I've learned about the wrestling industry, I've just learned it through like sitting at dinners listening to people talk or like riding in the cars with people like Chase Stevens, Tracy Smothers, like those guys, and James Storm even. It's like
Yeah.
I've learned more just through listening to their stories than I'd have anywhere or anything, especially Tracy. Like, dude, like you talking about like a freaking Gandalf of professional wrestling. Like Tracy was it.
Oh, he's got a
Like,
mind. Yeah, he had a
oh
mind,
yeah,
man. He
like
absolutely was so good in that fucking ring,
100%.
man.
Like Tracy should have been way more than what he was, and it was
Oh,
just, I don't know if it was just he was too good, maybe that just nobody else was going to be able to match what he was able to do. Like, I mean, I
yeah.
think a lot of times that was it. Um, I mean, because that even brings up guys like Chris Michaels. Like if you look at Chris Michaels, I don't know if you've seen him work or not, but
The
like,
name
dude,
sounds very familiar.
like he's one of the most like underrated guys I've ever met in this business. Like he should have been somewhere making a lot of money somewhere by now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, now like WWE with the last Brock Lesnar video that they put out, like he's literally in the first match on that one where it was I think it was him and Orton working Lesnar and Shelton. I think I could be
Okay.
wrong on it, so don't quote me on it. But I mean, it's like he literally built almost everybody who came out of like the ruthless aggression era and got like zero recognition and thanks for it. And he should have. Like he should have had the world, but and he's just a good dude too. And that's hard to find in this business too, is like legitimate good people.
Oh yeah. I mean, because people just think that, after they get to a certain spot or, feel like they've done so much for the industry that they just forget everybody behind them.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen a lot where even like newer wrestlers who like just started like a year ago, you followed them since day one. And then because they're starting to get their names out there, they're like, hey, fuck you.
Yeah.
It sucks, but it's a part of, life, and you see people change, and that's where like that guy comes in hand, is like he's just a good dude.
Yeah.
I Chase Stevens, James Storm, both talented wrestlers as well. I was a
Yep.
big fan of the Naturals back in TNA early days. I think a lot of people gave a lot more credit to AMW, but I was more of a Naturals fan. So like Chase Stevens and Andy Douglas were my guys. I was so,
No. Well,
such cool dudes.
and then like even then that goes back to the basic formula of what makes wrestling successful. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
nobody ever paid to watch Hulk Hogan. They all paid to
Yeah.
watch him beat up Roddy Piper. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can't have a Dragon Slayer without your dragon.
Yep.
And the Dragon Slayer is only as good as what the dragon makes him out to be. So it's like
Yep.
you can't, you got to have the whole ebony and ivory thing going on. It can't just be a one sided thing. And then that's another thing too that I think often goes kind of unseen is the amount of people that go into even just one match that could easily make or break a match. I mean, like if the camera guy is not in the right spot at the right time and he doesn't get that right shot, like a 5-star match could be like I want, well, I'd use
Oh
the
yeah.
star thing. I hate the star rating, but like to put it into perspective for everybody else, they can understand it. It's like what would be deemed like a 5-star match would get knocked down to like a 1-star match because like they didn't catch that one move or one spot or whatever, and then you have a referee who, if he's not in the proper placement or whatever, or if they make the wrong call or something like that at the wrong time, like there goes all that. And now it just went to shit and everybody's confused. It's like You got all those, you got announcers that play a big ass part in it, you got everybody in the back and production that plays a big part in it, and it's like one little minor chink in the armor can make the whole thing fall apart.
Oh yeah, I mean there could be like you said, like the camera movements. I mean, it's insane watching it now because like growing up watching like wrestling and stuff, the camera movements weren't as crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like now it's
Well,
just
and there wasn't
insane.
as
Like
much stuff back then either. It's
yeah,
like back then about like I mean, you look back at like the '80s, like the biggest high spot quote unquote that you might have seen would have maybe been like a drop kick from the top rope or like a
yep,
double axe handle off the top rope. Like that would have been the craziest freaking thing that
yep.
Like I mean, you look back then and like Jimmy Snuka diving off the cage like that then was the equivalent of Jeff Hardy doing a swanton bomb out of like a fucking Apache helicopter over the Himalayan mountains. You know what I mean? Like, but it's been so bastardized and overused
Yeah.
now that that stuff isn't special anymore. Like people don't they don't hold back. Like less is more. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
for example, like I don't want to throw the dude's name out because I don't know if he would want recognition for it or not. But one of the guys who helped train me um, kind of put it into perspective of like, say if you're driving down the road and like you just look out your window and you see two elephants fucking, like you're gonna be like, oh shit, what the hell? And like you're gonna pull over, take pictures, record it, like whatever. Be like, oh, like you're gonna call everybody you know, be like, hey, dude, like there's elephants fucking over here, like fucking whatever. But then you see it, you get your fill of it, you go on, and then maybe later in the night you come back and the elephants are still fucking. You're like, oh man, they're still fucking. Like yeah, whatever, that's cool.
It's not as cool the
Next
second time.
morning, yeah, and then like next morning when you're driving down the road, you look out, oh man, there's an elephants. They're still fucking, and like you keep doing that so many times, eventually you're just like you stop looking for the fucking elephants. And it's like you're just going about your day and you forget that they're even there because you gotten so immune to it now that it doesn't fucking make a difference. And like I think that correlates 100% accurate into wrestling. It's like you have so many guys who are so worried about just getting their shit in that they get their same shit in every single match and they're not innovative anymore.
Oh
Yeah, and
yeah.
then it gets to the point where then you see one match, you've seen them all, and then it's all the moves don't matter whatsoever. Like you can do
Yep.
whatever you want to, it doesn't fucking matter. It's about making a connection with the crowd. It's about drawing them and getting them emotionally invested in whatever you're doing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's the lost art in wrestling.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's funny because I started watching wrestling in 2003, and I loved Shawn Michaels the moment I seen him. Dude was fantastic, and it's like back then you didn't see super kicks happen at
Yeah,
all except for Shawn. And then Dolph Ziggler started doing it, the Usos started doing it, the Young Bucks started doing it. Everybody hits a super kick now, and you're like, yeah, it's not as fun anymore because that's
yeah,
gone. Everybody's hitting a frog splash now. Like, yeah, it's like, all right, well, there goes that for me too.
yeah.
It's the same moves now. And then what upsets me is you see guys get super kicked and they're up within 10 seconds. Like sell that shit.
No,
Selling is going downhill too. People don't sell shit like they used to either.
no. Well, because nobody knows how to sell anything anymore.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
I say nobody, but you know what I mean. I mean, like there are people that are good at what they do, and then there's other people who just don't know. But there's too many of the people who don't know for it to counteract the ones that do know. You know what I mean?
oh
And
yeah,
it's like it gets so overflown where you can go through like somebody to throw like a drop kick, and then like they'll get up, and then they'll superplex you, and then they'll get you up from that, and then they'll blow you up with C4, and then they'll pick you up off that. I'm like, I'm sorry, like if I blow somebody up with C4, like I'm gonna pin the motherfucker, like whatever. And then if he kicks out, he's gonna have a really bad day because you're not gonna stop that. So like that should have
right,
been it. You know what I mean? Like,
right. No,
and it's
definitely,
just
100%.
yeah, and it's like so many people. It goes back to the whole getting your shit in. It's like so many people are so wrapped up in doing that they don't realize the task at hand. And the whole task at hand is to have a real fight. And it's like like SP comes up to me all the time. He's like, "Hey man, like you got any ideas?" I'm like, "Nope, no, I don't." He's like, well, "What are you gonna do?" I was like, I'll figure it out. Like whatever we're at, like I'll do whatever I would do.
Yeah,
Anything that I do in the ring, I literally go into it with the mentality of my life is on the line and it's a bar fight.
yep.
If I'm in a bar fight, like if I'm having like some drinks, somebody gets out of line, I gotta whip their ass. Like I'm not gonna pull them to the side and be like, "Hey man, look, so here's the thing. Like I'm gonna kick your ass, but like, could you let me get these things in while we're doing it? Maybe I could throw you across the bar. Maybe you could
Yeah.
get up, smash a bottle up. Like fuck that shit. Like if somebody's
You're
out of
just
line,
gonna
I'm gonna
take
go
that
punch them in
bottle
the
and
mouth.
smash them.
Yeah, I'm gonna smash them in the mouth, kick their ass, and toss their ass outside, sit back down, and go back to drinking my beer. You know what I mean? Like,
I get
and
it,
it's the
man.
same thing in the ring. You know, it's
Uh,
the same exact thing in the ring. Like, whenever I'm out there in the ring, it comes down to me and whoever the other person is that's in the ring, and they are in the way of me getting everything that I want. Now, I
Yep.
mean, what I want is obviously what everybody else in this, this whole sport wants is it's to make money. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, if that's not your main desire, is to be like the main dude for everything, make as much money as you can, then you're in the wrong damn sport.
Yep.
But and it's like you have a lot of kids that they go out there and like you kind of go back to what I was saying earlier. Like they buy shit from like Party City or Hot Topic, and they're like, "Oh, like no, I'm a wrestler." I'm like, "No, you're pretending to be a fucking wrestler."
All
Like
these
there's a
motherfuckers
difference.
in jeans now, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, and
It's
I'm like,
fucking
dude.
insane. Like to
And I mean,
me,
like, if
to
it makes
me,
sense, I'm for it. But like
yeah,
too many people just do it just to be doing it.
dude, it's nuts. Because to me, so a pro wrestler always was a promo, attire, and the way they worked in the ring. Those
Yeah,
three, like the way But it's like I watch this shit and everybody's coming out in a t-shirt and jeans, and I'm like, shit, dude, I'm just gonna go in my fucking boxers and go wrestle somebody
yeah,
apparently because you could just do that shit now. Like,
yeah.
come up with
I mean, it's
creative
like
shit.
yeah, I mean, some people it worked. I mean, look at Raven. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah,
Raven's whole thing in ECW and WCW. He was basically the grunge guy. So it makes sense for him to go beat people up and freaking cut off jean shorts
but it
and
was
flannels
unique
and
back
leather
then. You
jackets.
didn't see it
Right?
that often.
Yeah,
Now it's like every other wrestler is coming out in jeans, and you're like, come on, dude, be unique,
yeah.
be something different, stick out.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and
sad.
that's like with me, like I mean, like a lot of bigger dudes such as myself, it's like they'll wear like singlets or like you said, like the t-shirts, or like they'll try to cover themselves up somehow. And I'm like, dude, like no, like embrace it. Like, sure, I don't have abs, but that's what makes me different than the other 10 people in the ring with abs.
Yeah.
It's like nobody wants to see cookie cutter wrestling. Like they want to see wrestlers, they want to see people. Like you have to have a connection with somebody. So it's like, sure, like I may be, like I said, like 6 foot 300 pounds and I jiggle, like whatever, fuck it. But at the same time, the people in the ring with me, they ain't laughing at me fucking jiggling and shit. They're not laughing at
Oh
how
yeah.
hairy I am. They're busy fucking screaming and crying because I'm punching them in the fucking face or like putting them in holds and shit and breaking their fucking bones.
Oh, 100%. But that's what I'm saying, man, is like, so like when I first seen you, I was like, you stood out to me. Like it's very rare that wrestlers really stick out to me as much anymore because, they don't come out with, unique looks. They have to
Yeah.
be super generic. You know, Old school wrestling, yeah, like in 70s, 80s, they had like the plain red tights or trunks or plain black trunks and, with like little detail. Like now, back in like, 10 years ago, wrestlers were coming out with cool attire. Now it's just like, fuck it, I'm just going to put on some shoes, jeans,
Right.
t-shirt, maybe, put on some wristband, whatever. Like people just don't come up with the ideas. Like my thing is like before I trained to be a wrestler, like I had my gimmick picked out. I had what I wanted to do. Like my name was going to be the Rocket Paul Matthews. Like that was me. And I was going to come out with a rocket on the side of my tights. I was going to run to the ring like Paul London style used to, like back in the day. I
Yeah.
had everything planned out. Like if you're training to be a wrestler, plan something out. Don't just be like, yeah, I have no idea what my gimmick's going to be,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and I mean something like that. I mean, like you could have all kinds of like promos and stuff like that. Like I mean, a lot of people could work. Yeah. Like yeah, like if me was working your baby face, your rocket and all that stuff. I come out, I may fucking make fun of you, call you like the Red Rocket or some shit. Start talking about you and your dog and like your love affair or some shit. You know what I mean? Like it gives you stuff. It gives you stuff to play off of. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
but like you got Joe Schmo number 5, out there with he's working as the bounty hunter number 536 and a half, and it's like what do you have with that? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, this generic bounty hunter 500, whatever fucking number I said, I don't remember now, but it's like, like you can only do so much with it. And like, and then that's another thing that like, which I mean, like I struggled with promos for like the longest time.
Yeah.
Because like I kind of got in that same mindset of like, oh well, like what do they want? Like are they gonna want this? Or are they gonna want that? Like, oh my god! And then like I don't know, it just everything just clicked one day, and like Chase Stevens was actually the one that kept like trying to tell me this whole time. He's like, kid, because I kept trying to find who I was and stuff. I mean, hell,
Yeah.
like I've literally spent over half my life in this business already.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, like I started training when I was 17. I'm fucking 31 now. So maybe not over half, but almost half of my lifespan.
So
And
we're the
it's
same
like,
age. Cool.
yeah. And so, I mean, it's like I've literally grown up in this business already.
Yep.
And I mean, with any kid that grows up in regular life, like they're gonna go through phases and fads and that kind of stuff, and question themselves and try to figure out who they are as a person and stuff. And I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
realistically, people never stop doing that. Like regardless of what age you are,
Oh, for
45,
sure.
50, 65, 70, even, like you're not gonna be the same person that you were when you were 20 or 30 years old. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
so like I kept trying to spend so much time like just throwing shit at a wall and just hoping something would stick. And I'm like, fuck, like maybe this will work. And I'd throw it, and I'd come out with a leather vest or something.
Yeah.
Well, shit, the leather vest didn't work. Okay, like that, like that didn't help me get anywhere. Like, cool, I'll take it. Like, well, fuck, I'll throw this. Like, oh, new T-shirt idea. Okay, cool, that didn't work.
Yeah.
And then it eventually got to the point where Chase just kind of sat me down. And he's like, look, kid, like if you're gonna be in this fucking business, like just fucking be you, be yourself. Don't be a fucking character. Don't be all this and that, and don't be what they want you to be. Like be who the fuck you are and crank the volume up.
Yep.
And then so I was like, huh, cool. Like, well, that's different. And then you're never going to make everybody happy. You know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be at least one person somewhere who tells you that you did something different or wrong or whatever, or oh, that'll never work, kid. Blah blah blah. But like, regardless, at the end of the day, as long as you know that you're doing what you feel is best for you out there,
Yep.
that's really all that matters with it. And it's like you can be a character without all like the glitz and glamour and stuff, but you still can't just go out as just Joe Blow, no charisma, no nothing, and then expect it to just fucking work. Like I said,
Oh
whenever I
yeah.
got out there, I literally like everything that I do, I'm like, okay, cool. Like again, if I'm in a fucking bar fight, like what the fuck would I do? But then I also think, cool, well, I'm the Iron Bear, so I'm gonna be more animalistic. I'm gonna be more fucking primal, and I just let
Yep.
my inner rage and inside everything out. You know what I mean? It's like it's weird. It's like a light switch. It's like before I go out, like I'm me, and I'm like, oh hey, fucking whatever, blah blah blah. And then it's like as soon as I put that fucking bear skull on, it's like I just let the Iron Bear side of me take over, and then that's where I let out everything. All the like anger, frustration,
Yep.
like like somebody cut you off in traffic and you can't fucking pull them over and kill them, whatever. Cool, like I'm gonna take that out on this guy. Like sucks for you that a semi truck, fucking pulled over on top of me because now you're
Yep.
getting it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But it's like everything that I've ever said or done or anything like that in the ring has always been an extension of me to the point where it's just that's what it is. Like the Iron Bear is not a character, it's not a gimmick. It's just the Iron Bear is me. Like it's me that's fucking tired of how society is. It's me tired of the way that the world's like turning and shit where everybody wants instant gratification 10 minutes ago. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like nobody wants to work for anything. They don't want to earn anything. There's no honor. There's no morality anymore. And it's like that's why I stay so far away from social media, which is probably the exact opposite of what I should be doing in wrestling. But like that's why I stay off of that stuff because I'm like, dude, man, like whatever. Like like whenever it's just me and the world and outside and I mean, I live on a mountain, whatnot, in the Smoky Mountains, and
Yep.
it's like, like just whatever it's me, it's like I'm just like at peace and I'm at one with the world. And then people are like, oh, but, like you gotta go to this. Okay, cool, let's go. And then I'm like, okay, like how bad can I beat this dude's ass and then get back to my fucking mountain? You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like,
Well,
so I
that's
mean,
why I think like the dysfunction thing is perfect. Like you fit perfectly with that.
yeah,
The whole idea of dysfunction, and I was talking to Brandon about it yesterday. It's just, I mean, I just see that fitting so well, and you guys just click so perfectly
no,
in that group. And I want to know a little bit. I know Brandon's story about how it started. But when I chatted with him on my show, it was like about 2 years ago. So we really never got into the topic of how dysfunction was coming about, stuff like that. So I want to hear your story about how dysfunction started and how that all came together.
yeah. So it kind of started by accident, really. We never planned for it to be a thing, and we had never really discussed it or anything. Um, it's just OVW used to use us as like basically the tag team to break in any newcomers or any new tag teams and that kind of stuff. And like like Al and Doug and that kind of stuff, they would kind of use us as like almost enforcers and to an extent.
Yeah.
Where it's just we would go out and we would just do what we had to do to make sure that they wanted to be there and then that kind of stuff. Now I was always way more rough than Espy was. He was always more forgiving, which is funny
Yeah.
because in the back we're polar opposites. In the back I'm like just laid back and I'm like, dude, fucking whatever. Like I don't care. Like I just want to go do my shit and then whatever. But then like Espy's the one that like in the back, like, he's like, he has a voice and he's like, hey, fucking whatever or whatever. And like, he takes more charge in the back. But then like, whenever that
Yep.
bell rings, like I said, it's like something in my head, like switches like a fucking, like flips like a switch. And then I just go into just fucking straight up bear mauling mode. And then like, so then he goes into the whole like, calm down, calm down, calm down. And I'm like, no, fuck this guy. I'm like, punch him in his face. And then he's like, Tom, like, stop, like, calm down. And I'm like, no, like, fuck him. He fucked that. Like, I don't remember the kid's name or anything like that, but we were doing a tag match, and SP comes over to me because, dude, he's like this kid's just like really like stiff and snug and blah blah blah. Like, I was like, cool. I was like, let me have him. So I tagged myself in or whatever, and I got in. I didn't like hurt the kid or anything, of course.
Yeah.
Like, I kicked him in the spine, and it thudded all the way through the building.
Yeah.
But again, it goes into the whole it's not ballet thing. Like, I'm not gonna slap my freaking thigh like everybody else can. Like, if you
Yeah.
can't take getting kicked in the back like a man, like, don't fucking do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so like, I'm being rough with this kid or whatever, and I'm like, okay, like, the fuck you want to do? You know what I mean? And so SP's like, dude, stop, 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 stop. I'm like, fine. I'm like, fine. You want him? And so I tagged him back in. And so like, Rep came over. He's like, hey, dude, like, when he's up, I was like, dude, fuck that. Like, I'm here to win. You know what I mean? Like, but no. So like, they just kind of threw us into a whole bunch of stuff like that, where like, oh well, we booked, like, we got this team this week. You guys are wrestling them. Oh
Yeah.
well, we want to see what these two kids can do. So you guys are wrestling them, like, and then it just got to the point where I was like, okay, cool. Like, I guess this is what we're gonna be doing. And then so he just came up to me one time and he's like, hey man, look, he's like, if they have us tagging every week, he's like, why don't we just form a fucking tag? I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, shit makes sense. I was like, so like, what are we gonna do? Because I mean, I wasn't gonna change me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I was just kind of like, well, like, what are we gonna do? And then his whole thing was, he's always just wanted to be accepted, and I mean, with how talented he is, like, he should be somewhere by now too. And it's just, I think a lot of what we did was just our combined frustrations, realistically, where
Yeah.
it's like, like, I hate the fucking real world. Like, I absolutely fucking hate it with a fiery passion. That's why I like I stay on that. People leave me the fuck alone. Like,
Yeah.
I can come down and like, up and down whenever I want to, and have my fill of it, and then go back and then fucking get away from everybody. And then like with him, it was just, he was just like, I'm underused. He's like, I'm always overlooked. He's like, I've always been the guy that's made everybody look good. Like, blah blah blah. And so we just kind of started thinking, we're like, fuck it, like, why don't we just do that? Like, like,
He's
we're
so
the guys that can
good
just,
too, man. Brandon's
yeah,
so good. I don't think he
yeah.
gets any credit like that he deserves. It's funny because when I watched him a decade ago, I was like, this kid is going to be something special because he had it, man. He came with this character and then he started teaming with Paradise. And then I seen him grow into the pro wrestling industry. And I was like, watching him and stuff like that, I feel like he's one of those I don't know because I'm not there, but he just gives that locker room leader vibe off for OVW because
I mean,
he's
kind of,
just,
yeah.
he's just been there, man. He just kills it and he gets so overlooked. He's so damn
No.
good, man. And I'm so happy that you guys are together because it
Yeah.
works.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's like we're like the yin and yang to each other. I mean, he does more like fast-paced technical stuff, and then I literally just beat the shit out of everybody. So like,
Yeah.
it works out. It's like, like anytime that they start getting the one up on him, like somehow like we'll get to the point where either I tag in, and I mean, we always tag clean. Like, I would never cheat. You know what I mean? Like, I would never pull somebody's hair to be able to tag
Right.
in or something. That's just, I would never do
Oh, right. No, for
that.
sure. Not at all.
Yeah, like I'd never pull the legal guy down while being the illegal guy. That's just, that's distasteful at that point. But but no,
Well, I
it's
will
like
say that I loved your guys' feud with Level X. Like what you guys did with
yeah,
them, like the whole thing was so fucking good. Like that
yeah.
whole story was amazing. I loved what I was glued. Like that got me invested more and more in OVW again too. Like I was just like, what's gonna happen next with Dysfunction? Like
Well,
and Brandon
and
posts
once
those videos all the time, like the little videos of, what's going to happen stuff. And I'm like, dude, this is so cool. Like watching it and shit. I'm like, I love it. It's awesome.
yeah. Well, and then I think one thing that made the Level X stuff special is like so me and Axe and Ray, like, we've been in the same area pretty much like our whole careers. We had just never really crossed paths. But like, me and him both have the same kind of work style where, I mean, he does more flashy stuff than what I do still, but like at the end of the day, like, he's not afraid to just, like, throw the gloves down and bare knuckle it or whatever, and then it's like you
Yeah.
got, Blanco Loco, who is more like their SB, where it's like they do more of the fast pace and flying and blah blah blah. Whereas me and Axton are the more just cool, like we're gonna go just beat the shit out of you kind of guys.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of is what made everything work so well with them. Is it was just, I mean, it was literally like we were wrestling ourselves half the time, and it's like there were, without throwing anything out or whatever, there was like some stuff that was going down like behind cameras, backstage, and that kind of stuff that kind of added to it. But
Yeah.
like we kind of use that as fuel for it, just because I mean, any time that you're doing anything that's real that you can show through is going to make it better. Just
Oh, for
because
sure.
eventually, like the people are going to pick up and be like, "Oh shit!" Like they, like fucking look at who'd be like Ernie Ladd and fucking Ox Baker, for example.
Yep.
It's like Ox Baker goes out there, like him and Ernie. Sure they weren't on necessarily bad terms, but they got into a little bit of an altercation at one point or whatever, and then that's what prompted the whole like Chicago riots, where Ox starts like beating the shit out of Ernie. And Ernie's like, "Hey, fucker, like stop getting your shit in, just fucking leave." And he goes, "No, man, give me one more heart punch," and fucking
Yep.
one heart punch, and then like all of fucking Chicago starts flying over in the ring,
Yep.
and like that escort him out, and it's like the little things like that, or you look at like Matt and Edge, back in what I think like 2005, I believe it
Yep.
was.
When Matt came back.
Um, yeah, and I mean, like sure, like they might have been on like working terms or whatever, but like there was still that underlying like what if, and it's like,
Yep.
man, like what if they actually hate each other? Like, well, what if they don't? Like, and that's where kind of going back to the whole why I hate social media, like that's where that kind of plays into, because nowadays with social media, like if you post anything personal or anything like that on say like your Facebook or Twitter, everybody sees it, right?
Yep.
So like with me as the Iron Bear, like if I'm going on my Facebook all the time and like I could be like tanning in my backyard in freaking swim trunks or whatever, and then like if I post a picture of that, everybody's gonna be like, oh, well, okay, like Iron Bear's fucking sunbathing or whatever, like whatever. But
Yeah.
like, but then that loses kind of the mystique to it. It's like you lose the whole like, well, fuck, like what does he do besides beat people up? Like I don't know, like, does he go to grocery stores? Does he ever fucking go bowling? Like, does he like golf? Like, what the
No, he
hell?
just
Like,
watches elephants fuck.
yeah, exactly. You just watch elephants fuck all day. It's like a common fucking thing around here. But I mean, it's like I think that's what kind of makes like different stuff like that good though. Like that's what brings the magic to wrestling is the mystique, the not knowing, like
Yeah.
the keeping the lines blurred. And that's what I think is hard for a lot of people, because a lot of people nowadays they play parts or they play wrestler, like they don't believe in what they're actually doing
Yep.
because it's not who they are. And then so that's why you'll have somebody who works as say like Super Destroyer under a mask, but then not knocking the actual Super Destroyer from forever ago, but like just example's sake. But you can have somebody working under a mask as like Super Destroyer or Frankenstein or whatever the fuck. But then on that same account, they're showing themselves at the grocery store with like their mom, whatever. And it's like, dude, like, well, like, why? How the fuck are you gonna be a Super Destroyer if you're fucking,
With your
buying
mom.
vegetables with your mom at a farmer's market? Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, so it's just, that's why anything that I do post is always me. That's why my character is always me, and then that's why
Yeah.
SB's him. Like everything that he does is always him. Everything he posts is him. Everything he does in the ring is him. Everything I do in the ring is me. And that's what makes our shit real. Same thing with, Axon and Blanco, get back to the level X thing. Like everything they do is them. Like that is
For
who
sure.
they are as people. And I think that's where that magic came from that we had with those guys to keep that going for as long as, I mean, hell, it was like, there's even a point where me and SB didn't even show up physically for what I think a month or two, something
Yeah.
like that. And like we were just cutting promos and sitting in because like it was so over at the time that we didn't have to show up. It
Yeah.
gets back to the whole less is more thing. Like we didn't have to be there to beat the shit out of them every week, because then that makes it less special whenever I finally get my hands on them and whenever SB finally get it and then they get their hands on us. Like, and it's just that's one thing that I think overall makes a better product like that, is just keeping the mystique and like not fucking blurring the lines and shit. You know what I mean? Because like
Oh, for
if you
sure.
are who you are, you can't blur the lines. Like there is nothing to slip up. Like
Right.
Superman never told anybody that he was Clark Kent. It's like there was Clark Kent and then there was Superman.
Yep.
They weren't both. So
No, 100%. And I agree with that. And that's why I see like wrestlers nowadays, like they'll have two separate accounts. Like they'll keep their personal shit, like their shit. Like they'll stay in character. And if you want to add them on their wrestling account, they don't care. But if you want to
yeah,
try to add them on their personal shit, they're like, don't add me. So I definitely get it. And it's funny because, Brandon's very similar to that. Like, he doesn't post shit unless it's dysfunction stuff. Like, he keeps it very low key as well. And I think that's what brings uniqueness to your guys' character, like you guys said, is because you guys are really you. Like, you don't want to, go through the blurred lines and show like stuff that, your personal lives, because then people are like, oh, so he's actually a really nice guy. He's not this asshole in the ring,
Yeah.
So
well, and then
totally
now, like people run into me at shows and stuff, and they're like, "Oh man, like this guy's really an asshole, but he's kind of nice." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, 100%.
I'm always a smart ass and an asshole, so might as well be a smart asshole, right? But
for sure. So I want to ask you this, because I've never had somebody in here that's been a part of a trios as well. So you guys added Kyle Roberts to your guys' faction, your guys' group. And I see like the switch offs and stuff like that. How is it to rotate in between like members of a team like that? Like, so if you guys do a tag match and it's you and Kyle, but then the next day it's you and Brandon, like, and then it's Brandon and Kyle, like, how is it to, build that chemistry with each individually and then all three together?
pretty much kind of how like kind of what we've already been talking about, where it's like all three of us are just us, and it's like we all talk pretty much every day. Like I mean, we may go like a day or two without really talking to each other. We'll share memes and shit back and forth because fucking who doesn't now.
Right.
But like especially me and Kyle, like we're always tormenting the hell out of SB with like dad jokes and shit, where it's like Kyle will like pop off some dad joke and then like I'll just make some smart ass thing and then SB's all like, why the fuck do I hang out with you guys? But and like I think that's like one thing that kind of makes it easier for us, it's like it's just we don't have anything to hide with it. Like we're all just us and we're all ourselves. And then it's like you got SB and Kyle that do all the fancy flashy technique stuff or whatever. And then you got me and SB, or like I don't think me and Kyle have ever tagged on our own yet. But I mean, if we did, it'd be the same thing. Like I would still, be myself. I'd still beat the shit out of people, set them up to where, maybe I hold them down so that way Kyle can hit his little flashy stuff or whatever he wants to do. It's like, but it's still kind of that same thing. And it's like, we all have our own unique, like, I guess like finishes for, like me and SB, we had the spine buster neck breaker combo thing that we've now started doing more of a spine buster into a back cracker kind of thing. Just because I feel like that's more devastating. I mean, sure, like Spinebuster Neckbreaker was great because they had me crushing them and then, SB fucking, cranking their neck and shit. But now it's like you got me lifting them up and crushing them down onto his knees where we're breaking their fucking spine and ribs all the fucking time. So, like, it works out. And then I think him and Kyle do like I believe that they do like a double running knee kind of fucking gimmick or whatever for those guys. So I mean, me and Kyle will probably do something similar to that, where like I'll probably pick the guy up or slam him or some shit, and then he'll hit him with whatever the hell he wants to hit him with at the time.
Spine buster running knee.
Something like that. Yeah, like something like that. But
it's funny because you talk about combos, and Brandon and I have played WWE video games together. And I told him, I'm like, I'm taking the Dysfunction logo and I'm making it on myself because I'm a part of Dysfunction now,
Yeah.
He's like, for sure. So we played tag matches a lot against like, people online, and we came up with like combos and shit like that because tag team wrestling is, to me, the greatest. I love tag team wrestling, so coming up with combos is cool. And I think, I've seen the Spinebuster neckbreaker before, so seeing a Spinebuster backbreaker is so different. It's something unique, and it brings something special to you guys. And it's absolutely awesome. I mean, I absolutely love what you guys are doing, man. You guys are doing so much cool stuff, and I can't wait to see what you guys do more.
We do what we can, so there's that. And because I've got some possible big stuff coming up later this year that I won't get into right now, just because I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch kind of thing. But but like me and SB were talking about it last night, where like I'm looking at a pretty big opportunity, one of the biggest that I've ever had, at least. And then what's funny too is I kind of pitch our group to them or whatever, and they were like, well, like, we don't really get it. Like, it's going to take too long. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, no, well, what about yourself? I'm like, okay, well, this is my character. Same fucking pitch and everything.
Yep.
And then I changed like maybe like 3 words up, but overall it was the exact same pitch that I just gave him for the tag. And they're like, "Oh man, that's gonna work. That's gonna make money." I'm like, "That's like I literally just said the
That's
same
the same
thing."
thing.
Like,
Yep.
it's like the only difference is I took 2 other people out of the equation, but I was like, it's the
Yep.
same shit. Like, I was like, it's still just me, you know. And
Yep.
so I don't know. That was kind of funny then. But like I told him, I was like, I was like, what's funny too is like I'm still using my logo and like I'm tweaking it a little bit, of course, just to where it's at least different enough to where it looks fancy, I guess, for them. But I mean, overall, that it's like I'm literally keeping all the same shit. Like I'm not changing anything about me or my character or anything like that because again, my character is me. So it's like I'm still gonna go there the same as if I would any shows with them. And like I was telling him, I was like, what's gonna be really funny is I was like, whenever I can actually get in and work my way up and kind of maybe get to a point where I have some pull to help them get up there. Because
Yeah.
I was like, eventually there may be a conversation where they're gonna be like, oh, well, if you're gonna do that, then you got to change all your shit. I'm like, no, I don't, because my shit's all the same shit.
Yep. Can't change something that's working, man.
Yeah, well, it's like and like you can't change something that's not who you are. You know what I mean? It's like when you like for all I know, I can get there and then they could try to make me the next like plumber or something like that. But like it's not gonna work because I don't know shit about plumbing. Like the best thing I do is just grab a plunger and just stick it on somebody's face and you know what I mean? But like it wouldn't have the same connection because like I'm not there with it. You know what I mean? Like I've never been a plumber. I don't know the first damn thing about plumbing besides fixing my own shit. But even then, half the time that becomes like a 3-day event because you fixing one thing fucks up 20 other things. And I'm like, you know what? I should have just called this guy. But
100%,
I don't
man.
know. But no, I think that's like one thing too is just like kind of what you were saying with like me already standing out to begin with, and it's like I think that's what's helped me do that. Is it's just I'm not playing a character, I'm not like playing a role, I'm not acting. You know what I mean? Like it's all just me. And I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people appreciate about the gimmick, and what a lot of people don't do these days that makes it set apart. Because it's like you could tell easily. I mean, like you watch, like not knocking any of the people in NXT right now, because I mean they got a shit ton of talented people, and a lot of them are like pro athletes and stuff like that or whatever. But I mean, it's like you look at half the folks that they have now, and you can tell where you're like, oh, okay, cool, they're just going through the motions, or
Yeah.
well, that promo didn't like it didn't have like that drive that it should have had, like and then it's like, but you can tell the difference between those and then a guy like say like LA Knight, for example,
Oh, yeah.
where it's like he has that natural charisma, that's him. He's not playing a role, he's not playing a character, like that's who he is.
And
And
he
I mean,
talked
that's
about
just
that on Chris Van Vliet show. Is he said that
yeah.
he just took himself and toned it up to 10, like you said earlier. Is like
Yeah,
just
and
playing
then that's
yourself.
that's what and that's what Jason always told me. He's like, quit doing all the shit that everybody else wants you to do. He's like, quit doing all the shit that you think you want to do. He's like, just fucking find you and be you and crank that son bitch up. And ever since I've done
Yep.
that, it's been great. It's been way less stressful, and people are actually like, fuck, like like. I mean, like I'll still write the shows a couple times with people, like Power Driver Pro, like I'm on
Yep.
their show August 5th, and like one of the last shows, like I just rode along with a couple of the guys. I wasn't even booked, but then I got there and then they were like, "Oh shit, you're that dude that does the fucking bear thing." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Get your stuff." I'm like, "Yeah," like I always do. And they're like, "Cool, we're throwing on. We're gonna book you." And I'm like, "Fucking bet, let's go."
You're the dude that does the bear shit. I love it, dude. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
well, and it's so easy because like the people who like don't know what you are or anything, like you can always like so like NWA's big thing is like because I've done some stuff with NWA as far as like backstage. I've not been in ring for them or anything
Yeah.
yet, but like, just hearing a bunch of people talk about everything is like you always hear people like that are asked to give them like elevator pitches where you get like 10 seconds or sometimes less to get the point of what you're doing across. And if it takes more than that, usually they're like, hey, now we're going to figure something else out because that's too complicated. Because you got to think
Yep.
like whenever you're on TV, you only have a certain amount of time before people start flipping channels or losing interest or anything like that.
Yep.
It's like if you turn on like a movie and like the characters are just in the middle of their shit and like you have no idea what the hell's going on, like you're gonna be like, well, like okay, like I know they're trying to survive something, but like what the fuck are they trying to survive?
Yep.
Like what's brought them here? Like I don't know. Now I'm gonna have to go back and invest more of my time to trying to figure out what's going on now, as opposed to like you fucking flip on WWF back in the day, and you got Stone Cold. Okay, he's a beer drinking redneck beating the shit out of everybody. Pretty
Yep.
fucking simple.
Just
Like,
stunning the shit out of everyone.
yeah, but I mean, it's like that's kind of what everybody needs to be looking at. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like if they can't figure out what you're doing within a matter of just seconds of them flipping to, because like 90% of the people who watch wrestling and that kind of stuff nowadays, at least, are just like casual watchers anyway. I mean, you got your smart fans and stuff, of course, but and then you got your diehards, of course, but the majority of the people watching and attending like the live shows and stuff like WWE and AEW, that kind of stuff, are folks who just, they're flipping through the channels and like, oh shit, okay, like what's that? Like, well, that dude looks fucking crazy. He's a fucking zombie mortician, like what the fuck, like. But it's still like they can get what the fuck's going on. But then like
Yeah.
you get into something that they're like, oh shit, wait, hold on, like what's that guy doing? Like, is he a
Yeah.
good guy? Is he a bad guy? Like what's he doing? Like why? Like is he like I don't know what his character is. Like I don't know what he's doing. Like then they're not going to be as invested. And then it's like the Sting thing. Whenever I was little, like I think back to that all the time. Like if Sting hadn't had all the vibrant colors and shit, the face paint, and looking all weird and super ways they did, like who knows if I would have even fucking kept watching.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
for
I mean,
sure.
especially a young kid like that. Like I'll probably be like, oh, whatever. Like you're just a fucking half naked sweaty guy,
No, I
but
mean
then
that's how I
yeah,
was, man. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I tell people this story all the time. Like Booker T and Christian was the first match I ever seen.
Oh wow,
And I just something about that match, something about watching both of those guys, I just got hooked, man. And they didn't really, they didn't cut a promo. It was just a match, and just something about that match just brought something special. Like Booker T became one of my favorites. Christian is absolutely underrated.
yeah,
Just watching that for the IC title, and I was like, dude, this is the shit right here. And it was Bad Blood 2003. So it was Goldberg versus Christian on the show. It was Triple H versus Nash in a Hell in a Cell match. So like they had so much shit going on. And I missed the first match, and it was the Dudleys versus Rodney Mack and Chris Nowitzki, I think. But
yeah,
it was like, dude, something like Booker T and Christian, I just fell in love with it, man. Like, and then I started watching guys like Rob Van Dam, who had like such a cool feel about him, like just so chill, and I was like, this is why I'm gonna still watch, and
yeah.
even during that period where WWE was shit, like, I still watched it because there were people that came out there that I was just like, I was intrigued, you know what I'm saying? Like, so the whole Sting thing, I get it 100%. Like, if a character doesn't stick out to you or something doesn't stick out to you, you're not going to continue to watch, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, and that's why I love what you guys do, is Dysfunction, what you guys do individually, what you guys do together, because it's refreshing and it's different. And, I was talking to Brandon yesterday and he told me, he's like, you know, there's something, tell me about how there's something else that has started that is similar to what you guys are doing, but you guys did it first. And
Yeah.
I was like, but I still see a difference between it. Like, I feel like there's still something special and different about you guys that sticks you guys out more. And I think it's what you said too, is you guys are just you. You
Yeah.
guys aren't playing characters. You guys are just you. So you feel that, so it's something that glues your attention to it, and you're like, dude, this is the coolest shit. Like I asked Brandon yesterday, I'm like, do you do the voices in those promos, like where it's all like staticky and shit? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, dude, that's fucking cool. Like it's
Yeah.
so cool. But yeah, something refreshing about you guys, and it's just so fun to watch. And I'm so glad that you're coming back in to the ring and stuff like that, to see you guys all three do your shit again. I'm so stoked for that, man. um, but yeah, I mean, I'm stoked to see what happens next with Tom Coffey, man. Can you give us a little insight what's going to happen next with Tom Coffey? Are we going to see you back in OVW soon?
Well, so the OVW thing, I think will be well just because I'm doing a lot of stuff that's keeping me busy right now. As far as just trying to kind of travel more, kind of spread my wings more, fly more,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. Which I mean, nothing against them at all. Like, I mean, like I know I got injured and shit there, but I mean that's part of the risks. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like holding anybody there like responsible or anything. I still love Al and to death. Like, I actually just talked to Al for probably the first time in a year. What 2 3 days ago he had a birthday, and I just shot him a birthday message or whatever. We talked for a little bit and hoped each other was doing good and that kind of thing. But it's
yeah,
like it just gets to the point where it's like me and SB both kind of sat down like before all of that had even really happened, and like I told him, I was like, dude, I was like, when this stuff with like Level X ends, I was like, I don't know what we're gonna do. I was like, because
Yeah.
we spent, yeah, I mean, we tried to fucking murder a preacher, like we literally pulled a box cutter out in the middle of a match
Yep.
and tried to fucking stab a preacher, and
Yep.
like we beat the shit out of a preacher and a military guy, and got to the point where like the only way to end that match was, I mean, it was a lights out match, so like you can't
Yep.
just fucking pin the guy or whatever. So it's like we had to kill somebody. But and then the thing with Level X, is just getting to the point where it's like, we had already freaking killed Blanco, like we'd already tried to fucking kill Ellie, and it's just it got to the point where I was like, where do we go? It's like and then like there's a thing where like you put food on the grill, right? For example, like there's a sweet spot to take it off where everybody can enjoy it and then want more, right? Versus
Yep.
just leaving it on the grill, you burn it, it tastes like shit, and everybody's like, no, like I'm good, I don't want this anymore, right? Kind of that same thing. So I told him, I was like, man, I was like, shit, I was like, I don't really know where, like, what else we're gonna do after this to top it, because we can't just go back to wrestling anymore. Like, we can't be these fucking vicious, vile, villainous bastard murderers and then just be all of a sudden be like, okay, cool, like now we're gonna play by the rules and we're gonna stop trying to kill people. Like, fuck that. You know what I mean? So like it just kind of got to the point where like I just, for me at least, like I mean, I just felt like our time there had kind of ran, and we
Yeah.
ran our course with it, and it was just time to move on. And like I
For
said, there's
sure.
nothing against those, the guys or girls or anybody there. Like everybody there's phenomenal. Like they all do their own shit, and I hope the best for everybody there. And it's just, I mean, it gets to the point where you can only grow so far until you have to try to branch out, and then
Oh yeah,
maybe
for sure.
that's branching out, taking a step away, and coming back later. I mean, whoever knows? Like, you never know what the future is going to hold or anything like that. But
I'm sure the door's
that,
always open for you guys, 100%.
yeah, well, I mean, like Al's always told me that he's like, dude, he's like, kid, as long as I've got this, like, you've got a job, blah blah blah. So I mean, like, that's always nice too. But I mean,
For
you look
sure.
at like Cody, you look at Cody for example. It's like he's doing the dashing thing and the Stardust thing, and then he was just kind of like, man, whatever. Like, I'm just burnt out. This is my shit. Went off, and did his own thing. What, 7, 8 something plus years later,
Came
maybe even
back.
longer than that, comes back. Now he's at the top of his game again. Now he's fresh again. And it's like, if you overexpose it too long, go back to the food on the grill thing. If you overexpose it too long, eventually you're going to wear out your welcome, and then you're going to get more go away heat than anything, where people are going to start being like, oh man, whatever, here's
Yep.
the elephants fucking again. But because like if we went out every week and tried to stab a different preacher every fucking week, people are going to stop giving a shit that we're trying to kill preachers. And it's like, if we go out and fucking crucify a military guy every week, you're going to stop giving a shit. Same
Yep.
thing. And it was just like, I mean, the injury sucked, sure, but it couldn't have happened at a better time.
Oh, for sure.
And it was just the best possible way to end everything, to step back, take a break, reassess everything, and then just kind of figure out, okay, what's next? Where do I go now? And it's like,
Oh, for
because I
sure.
do like, yeah, and it's weird how my life's always kind of worked that way too. It's like I always like seem to kind of get put where I need to be, which is really fucking weird. But like, I mean, yeah, it's life. Life's weird, but I mean, it's like, I went from just being like, like a really young, fat, pudgy kid that, just left football to fucking go be a wrestler and shit, like while I'm still in my senior year of high school and shit. And,
Yep.
it's like I go from working parking lots and stuff. And then I had my first run with NWA back before they were really, I say anything, but you know what I mean? Like that was when
Right.
NWA was pretty much dead and everybody was just clinging to the letters. But
Before
so
Corrigan took over and everything.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It was way before
Yep.
that. This is like 2010, 2011.
Yep.
Like TNA had already split off from them, and then they just didn't have anything left. But so it's like, like I went from getting in the parking lot to getting TV experience with those guys. Learning how TV sort of kind of works with them, to leaving those guys, and then getting work with Burt Prentice out in Nashville and stuff. And then Burt helped me out a hell of a lot.
Yep.
I mean, he got me around guys that, like I was saying, like with like Chase Stevens and Tracy and then Chris Michaels, and like, guys who had been places and made money and knew how the shit worked. And, they weren't just local yokels and stuff. And
Yep.
like, if I hadn't had that opportunity, which is awesome how that one started anyway, because my first show ever with Bert, one of my good friends, Shan Andrews, they called me that day, and he's like, hey, he's like, I can't make it out of the show. Can you go in my place? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then so I called up another guy. I was like, hey, I was like, I'm gonna go to Nashville. Like, you want to ride with me, or whatever? So he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So we show up, and I introduced myself. I was like, hey, I was like, I'm Fan's friend. He told me to come here, blah blah blah, and it just kind of went from there. And then it's like, so had it not been for that, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. And then if it hadn't been for all of the stuff that I learned from everybody working at Burt's, I mean, from Burt himself to, like I said, like Chase and Chris and them, and it's like, if I hadn't learned everything that I did with those guys, like that may not have took me to the next step, And it's like whenever everything kind of Burt's ran its course, and that was whenever I was like just kind of throwing shit at a wall, seeing what would stick, until finally I just kind of said fuck it and just did my own thing. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, and it's just I don't know, like everything just always happens to work out, and then the COVID thing hit, and then everybody thought the world was over and ending and that kind of shit, and then that's whenever I got the opportunity up at OVW, and I was like, well, that's cool. And then I learned even more of how like an actual live TV product works, because I learned how studio stuff worked with Burt and them.
Yeah.
You'd tape it in front of a cold crowd. Like 90% of the crowd on studio tapings just are people who just happen to be walking by, and then they're like, "Oh, shit, like what's that?" And then then they're there to watch the elephants fuck.
Yeah. There you go.
But like they don't know what's going on. They like have them probably don't even know what fucking wrestling even is. But so I learned that style, and then I learned live TV with OVW, and then now it's just kind of to the point where the thing with OVW happened, and then I was out for about 10 months, and then now it's just to the point where now I'm kind of going more in the direction of my next big adventure, hopefully. Which, like I said, like I'll go more details, whenever something
Yeah.
with that either happens or doesn't happen, but I don't know. I mean, it's a crazy roller coaster of emotions, but that's what makes it fun and exciting, because like it's not a 9 to 5 job; it's a 24/7 job.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's like you can't stop. Like there's at any point, tens of thousands plus people all fighting for the same spots and the same opportunities, and it's all just about like, cool, like what am I gonna do to set myself apart from them? Like what am I gonna do to make everything different? And then
To
like
stick
I
out.
think that's
Yeah.
what, yeah. And then I think that's one thing that I've always been fairly decent with, is like anytime that I do try to evolve myself as a person, I always look back and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, so like now I'm evolving in this direction. So like, how am I going to get Iron Bear to coincide with this now?
Yeah.
And then kind of with the same thing with dysfunction, it's like, cool. Well, like I'm going in this direction. So like, how can I keep going in the direction that I'm going while still being relevant enough, with SB and Kyle, and it's like, so like we're still kind of working on that now, but I mean it's like, I mean we're still going to be us at the end of the day. I mean, because that's what makes money. That's what works. That's what people buy.
Oh, for
They
sure.
don't buy fake. They want real shit. They want to watch people beating the fuck out of each other, and then that's what I provide pretty well.
Hey, man, you do a great job at it, and I'm so stoked to see what's next for Tom Coffey, man.
No,
I think if whoever is watching this episode, if you have never seen Tom Coffey do his thing, check him out. Fantastic in that ring, man. He sets himself apart. He is fantastic. Go watch. Tom,
whoever's not heard of me is probably gonna be like, "Yeah, this guy bitches an awful lot."
hey, man, I was so stoked to get you on the show, man. I'm a huge fan. I think what you do is absolutely incredible. So just keep killing it, man. It was an honor having you on the show. I look forward to seeing what's next for Tom Coffey. I look forward to seeing what's next for Dysfunction. Tom, do you want to tell the fans where they could find you at on social media? I know you're not as active on there, but do you want to tell them where they could find you at?
Yeah, so pretty much all of my handles, I simplified it about a year or so ago. Everything is just the Iron Bear TC. You can find it, facebook.com // whichever one goes this way. Like I'm terrible with social media stuff, but like I said, I'm just forgetting I like chilling on mountains, not on a phone. But like, um, yeah, I mean everything's just facebook.com / the Iron Bear TC, Instagram, same thing, the Iron Bear TC, Twitter, same thing. I'm trying to become more active on them, just for the sake of everybody trying to keep up with me. But I am very terrible at that. So, also, as you probably know, because I think it took me like 2 weeks to even read your first message about trying to do the podcast.
Yep.
Until SB's like, "Hey, this dude's like trying to like shit." Fuck. I was like, "Where at?" And he's like, "Here." I'm like, "Damn!" Like, all right. Like, I don't even know what my Twitter login stuff is. Like, SB gives me shit over that all the time. He's like, "Hey, bro, like check this out." I'm like, "Yeah." Like, I can't get into my Twitter. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know how to reset it. Like,
That's
I'm
awesome.
I'm. And then it's like he gives me shit. He's like, like, you're the like oldest young person I know. He was like, you're fucking 30, you're in the technology boom. He's like, but you have the freaking technology skills of like a 97-year-old. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Hey, I get
But
it, man. I get it. But yeah, Tom, it was a pleasure talking to you, man. This was such a fun episode. Can't wait till we drop it tomorrow. But
oh,
man, Tom, this was great, man. I enjoyed talking to you. Can't wait to see what's next for you guys. Thank you, Tom, for coming on. Appreciate it.
thank you for having me, man.
You're very welcome. Until next time, guys, it's your host, Matt, my guest, Tom Coffey. You guys take care.